You are listening to the TEDxAsburyPark official podcast. TEDxAsburyPark is the largest and highest rated TEDx conference on the East Coast. Our volunteer-based organization sponsors a series of events throughout the year dedicated to education, community, innovation, and ideas worth spreading, as well as an annual conference in May. Please stay with us for the official TEDxAsburyPark podcast of ideas worth spreading.
Welcome. This is Brian Smiga, host of TEDxAsburyPark, and I have here with me one of my favorite TEDxAsburyPark speakers who debuted with us in Asbury Park a few years back, David Stewart, the founder of Aegis. Welcome, David.
Hey, Brian. Great to be here.
Great to have you, too. And we're going to do lots more together. I know it. Your talk was picked up by TED.com. I thought it was one of our best talks, and I hope our folks on the line here will Google David Stewart Aegis TED Talk and watch your TED Talk. But today, we're here to talk about aging, ageism, Aegis, and what's the big story. Now, you had a perfectly fine career, but then you took a turn to focus on being an evangelist and a spokesperson and a consultant about marketing, understanding, realizations for folks over 50. What was the catalyst there? What was your epiphany? How did that get started?
That's a great question. And the way you frame that, Brian, it makes it sound as if I planned all that, and I didn't. I never really had any intention to be any of those things. In fact, most of those things I thought were far out of my capacity. And I've learned how to do them and gotten reasonably good at most of it. The way we started was it was just a curiosity on my part. I thought, why are people my age treated so badly in the media? I mean, we're treated as if we have some terrible defect that we're in need, like we're in need of immediate medical attention, or we're just going to drop dead. And you're not like that. I'm not like that. There are people like that. But really what I found from, exploring this a little bit was that there's something like 20%, it's not everyone, but something like 20% of the American population that's in our age group. So if we say 50 to 60, 60 to 70, that are living in a very different way than people lived back, say, 30 or 40 years ago. They're much healthier. They expect to live a lot longer. And because of that, they behave in a very different way. The life that I have now, I'm 61, is radically different than what my mom did at 61. And it just kind of grew from there. We didn't really have a roadmap in the beginning. I mean, we had some ideas, but what happened was we became the go-to place for, if you want to know about people like us and how we think and how we behave, we're the experts. And so now, as you said, we get called upon by a lot of large publications and brands and companies, and we do big quant research, and we produce content for a lot of big companies now. And it turns out that my little curiosity is, hundreds of thousands of people around the world to look at us now. So it's a very nice change of affair.
That's great. And I think we've needed a forum for us, those of us over 50, especially those of us who are leading vibrant, powerful lives. Maybe we're at the height of our skills, the height of our powers. And also, I think the world faces an economic crisis due to aging population that can be shifted by people staying active, productive, vital into their 60s. Tell us why this is a big idea, why this is a world-changing idea.
Well, I mean, you touched upon it. I mean, economically, the world, or really any culture within the world, you can't marginalize so that many people. It's what I think in the U.S. it's something like 40% of the population is over 50. So to economically marginalize that group of people is not sustainable. They're also
I feel the same way about atheists, pantheists, and people who are relaxed about formal religion. They actually are the religious majority, but that no one gives them any love. But so I guess I'm in both camps. But let's focus on the over 50s. I'm well over 50.
And you're doing great. And as you said, you feel that you're peaking your powers. I feel same way. So why should I be marginalized? It was a very different thing. If 100 years ago, if we were like, down with picks and shovels and mining coal, but we're not. So, we have much longer health spans. And I think that as you speak to why is this a big idea, this is a global phenomenon. In Japan, you have the first hyper-aged society. And I was recently there, and there are people in their 70s, well into their advanced 80s that are working and, really part of the culture and society. And it's normal. Now super aging societies of Singapore, Korea, Hong Kong, also same deal. And so you're seeing the population of the world is shifting older. There are now more people over 65 than over 5. That's never happened before. So this is not only, if we choose it to be, it's a tremendous resource. It's a tremendous economic engine. And it's also a huge consuming base. And people forget that. They, like you and I, we buy stuff. We buy a lot of stuff. We not only produce through our economic output, but we're big drivers of the economy.
So I think the brands and media are starting to get the message, but I don't feel like it's happening fast enough. What's your point of view? You've got the pulse on this, like whether it's AARP or a major broadcast company or media company. What's the evidence that they're beginning to build product and campaigns for us over 50?
Well, I can tell you, Brian, when we first started out and we had all this knowledge, and we would call up companies, a lot of consumer products companies, finance companies, insurance companies, say, hey, like, we've got this like new understanding. You should really know about this. And they ran from us like we were some kind of disease. They wanted nothing to do with us. It was just impossible. And now we don't do any client outreach. They come to us. What we do is we do client selection, who we want to work with.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of folks listening that run medium-sized businesses, say in the New York Metro. Can they work with you and your agency to get advice on how to market to the over 50 community?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have some small startups that we work with, which is a lot of fun. And then, we work with BMW and MetLife and, a lot of the big consumer products companies. It's everything we do is bespoke. We listen to people, what people's needs are. And if we think we can help them, we say, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. In the venture world, we call it silver tech.
Yeah.
So one more stigma to address, and it's immediate, which is that COVID, we're recording, on June 5th, has affected folks over 60. But when it first arrived on our shores, we expected if you were over 60, you were at dramatically different risk rates. However, maybe this isn't entirely true. We now know that there's other risk populations as well. What is the real truth around COVID and folks over 60? And also, what can we do about it?
All right, so I'm not a scientist. And I think that COVID is a particularly bizarre pathogen. It's novel. So I feel like every day we learn more. Mm-hmm. I think, from what I know, I think age is a factor, but there's a lot of what they, call underlying risk factors. And those are diabetes, hypertension, smoking, cancer. There's a whole host of them. And if you were to add up in the American population all the people who had underlying risk factors, you're looking at more than half the population. I think that what hasn't really been done is a breakout of age and these very specific underlying conditions. So I think there is increased risk to people who are older, but it's unclear whether all people who are older are at risk. It may be just people who are living an unhealthy lifestyle. It may not. I mean, I'm here in Utah. I have friends who work in the medical community, and they don't have many COVID cases now. But a month ago, there weren't any people in their 60s and 70s on vents. It was all people in their 40s and 50s, and they were really puzzled about that. They didn't understand why that was.
We're not going to make any prescriptions here, but we are going to point out that those who are unhealthy and those who are not staying healthy are at the greatest risk.
Yes.
And that income is also a huge risk factor, unfortunately.
Yes.
And then, of course, viral load, whether you're working in a hospital or in an indoor space where you are subject to a lot of the virus encountering your respiratory system. Yes. These are the greater risk factors than just age alone. So I guess the call to action for those of us over 50 is to get out there and get in shape and stay healthy as long as we can. And I think that's really the message across the board. So our audience would love to learn more. Catch David Stewart on TED.com and on Aegis. Where do they find you at Aegis, David?
Oh, just Google the word Aegis. We're the first thing that comes up. Or Aegis.com. Aegis, you're never going to forget that word. Easy.
Right. I love the paradox. And whenever anyone's giving me crap for being a little older than the typical VC, I call them ageist. And yet I love the double edge there. So thank you for that. And thank you for being with us today. David's going to come on back and lead a webinar for us in September on why people over 50 are the happiest people on earth. And he's got a really great story and lots of science behind that. So this is Brian Smiga of TEDxAsburyPark. Catch us with our webinars and our salons at TEDxAsburyPark.com. Catch David and Aegis at Aegis.com. And thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon at one of our future events. David, can't wait for you to come back and do a deeper dive on the joy of being over 50. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Brian. And everyone out there, please sign up for our newsletter. It's amazing.
You have been listening to the TEDxAsburyPark official podcast. These podcasts are produced by the many volunteers of the TEDxAsburyPark organization. We encourage you to find out more about TEDxAsburyPark by going to TEDxAsburyPark.com. The opening music was by David Stewart, and the closing theme is by Doug Drescher. Thank you for listening to the TEDxAsburyPark podcast.